A 1961 Farmer's Almanac, stored in a basement workshop for 65 years, stopped a foreclosure on 520 acres and forced a regional bank to pay $127,000 in damages. The signature was on page 43, written in fountain pen, witnessed by two men who had been dead for 40 years. When the bank's attorney saw it in mediation, he asked for a recess. He never came back to the table. His firm sent a withdrawal letter 36 hours later. Here is how it started. The land had belonged to a man named Joseph Renner. He farmed 520 acres in Lancaster County, Nebraska for 58 years. He raised corn and soybeans. He kept cattle when the market was good and sold them when it wasn't. He lived alone in a house his father built in 1927. He never married. He had no children. He had one nephew, a man named Dale Renner, who lived 3 hours away in Omaha and worked as a maintenance supervisor for a school district. Joseph and Dale saw each other twice a year, Christmas and the county fair in August. They were not close, but they were family, and that was enough. Joseph died in his sleep on February 11, 2024. He was 84 years old. A neighbor found him 3 days later when he didn't show up for coffee at the diner in town. The county called Dale. Dale drove down that afternoon. He found the house the way Joseph had left it, clean, organized, nothing out of place. There was a handwritten note on the kitchen table, undated in Joseph's careful script. Dale, the land is yours if you work it. If you don't work it, sell it to someone who will. Don't let it sit empty. J. Dale read the note twice. He folded it and put it in his pocket. The will was simple. Joseph left everything to Dale, the house, the equipment, the 520 acres. No conditions in the legal document itself, but Dale remembered the note. Joseph had been clear. Work it or sell it. Don't let it sit. Dale tried. He took a leave of absence from his job and moved into the house in March 2024. He planted 200 acres of soybeans that spring. He hired a neighbor to help with the work. He learned as he went. The crop came in poorly. The soil needed work. Joseph had been doing for decades that Dale didn't know how to do. The equipment kept breaking down. By October, Dale had lost $32,000. He went back to Omaha in November. He couldn't afford to keep trying. But he didn't sell. He couldn't. Joseph had trusted him with it. Dale kept the land. He paid the property taxes out of his own salary. He drove down once a month to check on the house. He mowed the grass. He kept the place from falling apart. He told himself he'd figure it out. He told himself he'd find someone to lease it, someone to work it the way Joseph wanted. But a year passed and the land sat empty. In January 2026, Dale received a letter from Midwest Agricultural Finance Corporation. The letter stated that Joseph Renner had taken out a secured agricultural loan in 1998 for $85,000, with the 520 acres listed as collateral. The loan had been current until Joseph's death, at which point automatic payments ceased. The outstanding balance, including accrued interest and penalties, was now $94,600. Payment was due within 30 days, or foreclosure proceedings would begin. Dale called the number on the letter. He spoke to a representative who gave him a case number and told him the account details were accurate. Dale asked for documentation. The representative said it would be mailed. Dale waited. Nothing came. He called again. A different representative told him the documents were in the mail. Dale waited another 2 weeks. Still nothing. On February 18, 2026, Dale received a second letter. This one was titled, Notice of Foreclosure, Final Demand. It stated that Midwest Agricultural Finance Corporation would proceed with a public auction of the property on March 22, 2026, unless the full balance of $94,600 was paid immediately. The letter included no loan documents, no payment history, no proof of debt, just the demand. Dale drove to Lincoln the next day. He went to the Lancaster County Recorder's office and asked to see any liens filed against Joseph Renner's property. The clerk searched the system. There was one lien on file, dated October 1998, filed by Midwest Agricultural Finance Corporation. The lien amount listed was $85,000. Dale asked for a copy. The clerk printed it. Dale looked at the signature line. It was stamped, not signed. There was no notary seal. Dale asked if that was normal. The clerk shrugged. Depends on the year. Older filings sometimes got processed differently. Dale asked if there was any record of loan payments. The clerk said the recorder's office didn't track payments, only filings. Dale would need to contact the lender directly for payment history. Dale called Midwest Agricultural Finance Corporation again. This time he asked to speak to someone in their legal department. He was transferred 3 times. He waited on hold for 40 minutes. Finally, a woman answered. She identified herself as Rebecca Stoll, loan recovery specialist. Dale explained the situation. He said he needed to see the original loan documents and the full payment history before he could verify the debt. Rebecca's tone was polite but firm. Mr. Renner, the loan is documented in our system. Your uncle defaulted upon his death. We're simply enforcing the terms of the original agreement. If you'd like to avoid foreclosure, you can pay the balance in full or contact us to discuss a payment plan. I need to see the loan agreement my uncle signed. Those documents are in archive storage. Retrieval can take 4 to 6 weeks. The foreclosure is in 30 days. Then I'd suggest you prioritize payment, Mr. Renner. Dale hung up. He didn't have $94,600. He had $11,000 in savings and a mortgage on his own house in Omaha. He couldn't borrow against Joseph's land because it was under lien. He couldn't sell it because no one would buy property in foreclosure. He was trapped. Dale drove back to Joseph's house the following weekend. He walked through the rooms slowly, looking for anything that might help. Joseph had kept records, but they were scattered. Tax documents in a drawer, insurance papers in a closet, old receipts in a box under the bed. Dale found nothing about a loan from 1998, nothing from Midwest Agricultural Finance Corporation, no payment stubs, no statements, nothing. He went down to the basement. Joseph had used half of it as a workshop. There was a workbench against the far wall, scarred and stained from 60 years of use. Tools hung on pegboard. A vise was bolted to the bench. Everything was organized. Everything had a place. Dale stood there for a long time, looking at the space where his uncle had spent thousands of hours building, fixing, and keeping things running. There was a steel toolbox under the workbench, heavy, dark green. Dale pulled it out and set it on the bench. It wasn't locked. He opened the lid. Inside were layers of tools, wrenches, screwdrivers, pliers. Beneath the top tray was a second layer. Beneath that, at the very bottom, wrapped in an oilcloth, were 3 books. Dale lifted them out carefully. 2 were ledgers, filled with Joseph's handwriting, planting dates, harvest yields, expenses. The third was a farmer's almanac from 1961. Dark blue cover, worn edges, pages yellowed and brittle. Dale opened the almanac. Most of the pages were blank in the margins. Some had notes in Joseph's handwriting, weather observations, frost dates, planting reminders. Dale flipped through slowly. On page 43, in the middle of a section about crop rotation, there was writing that didn't match the printed text. It was a handwritten paragraph dated October 14, 1998, written in fountain pen. I, Joseph Renner, hereby acknowledge full repayment of the loan issued by Midwest Agricultural Finance Corporation in the amount of $85,000, originated April 1998, repaid in full October 1998. Final payment made October 12, 1998. Check number 4471. Lien to be released upon receipt. Witnessed below. 2 signatures followed. Both names Dale didn't recognize, both dated October 14, 1998. Dale read it 3 times. Then he closed the almanac carefully and carried it upstairs. He called a lawyer the next morning. A man named Peter Voss, recommended by a friend in Omaha. Peter practiced agricultural law in Lincoln. He had been a lawyer for 33 years. Dale drove to his office that afternoon and brought the almanac. Peter read the page. He read it again. He looked up at Dale. This is a contemporaneous record of repayment. If your uncle paid off the loan in 1998 and documented it here, and if Midwest never released the lien, that's a fraudulent claim. Can we prove it? We can request their records. If they can't produce evidence of payments made after October 1998, and if they can't explain why the lien wasn't released, then yes, this is proof. Peter sent a formal demand letter to Midwest Agricultural Finance Corporation on March 1, 2026. The letter requested immediate production of the original loan agreement, full payment history from 1998 to 2024, and documentation supporting the current claimed balance of $94,600. The letter stated that Dale Renner possessed evidence the loan had been repaid in full in October 1998, and that continued collection efforts constituted fraud. The letter demanded withdrawal of the foreclosure proceedings within 10 business days. Midwest Agricultural Finance Corporation responded 7 days later. The response came from their law firm, Stratton and Hale, LLP, based in Des Moines. The attorney was a man named Gregory Malik. He had been practicing debt collection and foreclosure law for 19 years. His letter was 2 pages long. It stated that Midwest Agricultural Finance Corporation maintained comprehensive records of all loan accounts, that the Renner loan had remained active and current until Joseph Renner's death in February 2024, and that the current balance was accurate and enforceable. The letter included no attachments, no payment history, no loan documents. It closed by stating that unless full payment was received by March 15, 2026, foreclosure would proceed as scheduled. Peter called Gregory Malik directly. The conversation lasted 6 minutes. Gregory repeated the same points from the letter. Peter asked for the payment records. Gregory said they were being retrieved from archive storage and would be provided in due course. Peter said due course wasn't good enough with a foreclosure scheduled in 2 weeks. Gregory said the foreclosure date was firm. Peter said he would file an emergency injunction. Gregory said that was Dale's right. Peter filed the injunction on March 10, 2026. The hearing was set for March 18, 4 days before the scheduled foreclosure. But the hearing never happened. On March 14th, Peter received a phone call from Gregory Malik. Gregory asked if Peter and Dale were available for mediation the following day. Peter asked why. Gregory said the firm had located the archive records for the Renner loan and wanted to discuss resolution options. Peter said they'd be there. The mediation took place on March 15th, 2026, in a conference room at Stratton and Hale's office in Des Moines. Gregory Malik was there. So was a representative from Midwest Agricultural Finance Corporation, a woman named Karen Bryce, Vice President of Loan Operations. Peter and Dale sat across from them. Gregory opened. We've reviewed the archive records for the Renner loan. Our records show the loan was originated in April 1998 for $85,000. We have documentation of payments made from April 1998 through September 1998. In October 1998, a final lump sum payment was received in the amount of $71,200, which satisfied the remaining balance. The loan was marked as paid in full in our internal system on October 14, 1998. He paused. Karen Bryce said nothing. She stared at the table. Peter said, "So the loan was repaid in full in 1998?" "Correct." "Then why is there still a lien on file?" Gregory shifted in his seat. The lien release was never processed. It should have been filed with the county recorder's office in October 1998. It wasn't. The loan remained flagged in our acquisition system when we purchased Midwest Agricultural Finance Corporation's portfolio in 2014. When Joseph Renner died and automatic payments ceased, the system flagged the account as delinquent based on the active lien, not on the actual loan status. The error was not caught until we retrieved the archive files this week. Peter leaned back in his chair. "You tried to foreclose on a loan that was paid off 28 years ago." Gregory did not respond. Peter placed the Farmer's Almanac on the table. He opened it to page 43. "My client's uncle documented the repayment here, signed, witnessed, dated October 14, 1998, the same date your records show the loan was satisfied. He kept this in a toolbox in his basement for 28 years because he knew you'd never released the lien. He knew someday someone would need proof." Karen Bryce looked at the page. She looked at Gregory. She stood. "We're withdrawing the foreclosure. We'll file a lien release with the county by the end of the week. We'll cover Mr. Renner's legal fees." Peter said, "Legal fees, plus damages for fraudulent debt collection, plus compensation for the emotional distress and financial harm caused by threatening foreclosure on property he owns free and clear." Karen looked at Gregory. Gregory said nothing. Peter continued, "We're asking for $127,000. That's legal fees, damages, and compensation. You'll also issue a formal letter of apology and correction to all credit agencies, confirming no debt ever existed post-1998. Karen sat back down. She looked at Gregory again. Gregory said, "We'll need to confer with our board." Peter stood. "You have 48 hours. The settlement agreement arrived on March 17, 2026. $127,000. Lien release filed with Lancaster County the same day. Foreclosure withdrawn. Formal correction letters sent to credit agencies. The matter was closed." Dale drove back to Joseph's house on a Saturday in April. He parked in the driveway and sat there for a while. The land was green. Spring planting season had started. Dale wasn't farming it. He still didn't know how, but he knew he'd figure it out. Or he'd find someone who could. Someone who would work it the way Joseph wanted. He walked down to the basement and stood at the workbench. The steel toolbox was still there, lid open, the almanac resting on top. Dale picked up the almanac and turned to page 43. He read his uncle's words one more time. Then he closed the book, wrapped it back in the oilcloth, and placed it at the bottom of the toolbox beneath the tools. He closed the lid. He left it exactly where Joseph had left it. Upstairs, he made a pot of coffee. He sat at the kitchen table and looked out the window at the fields. He thought about calling his supervisor in Omaha. He thought about the leave of absence he'd taken 2 years ago and never gone back from. He thought about the note Joseph had left on this same table. "Work it or sell it. Don't let it sit empty." Dale picked up the phone. He called a neighbor who leased land, asked if he'd be interested in a partnership. The neighbor said he'd come by Monday to talk. Dale hung up. He poured another cup of coffee. Outside, the land stretched out quiet and wide under an April sky. Tell me in the comments, would you have kept fighting for land you didn't know how to work? Or would you have walked away and let it go? I'll see you next story.